a mic holder. Now, how do you follow that? Goodness. I'm going to have everybody participate in a quick activity with me because moments like this are super significant and very special. If you have your cell phone, let's just go ahead and in your seat, you can stand up and we're going to turn around and get a selfie with the graduates in the background. How about that? Let's do that real quick. Y'all ready? I'm putting mine on portrait. I know how to look good on social media. Y'all got that? Let's give these graduates a round of applause. Thank you to everyone who is here, to our Board of Education, our Madam Chairwoman, Dina Hayes, our Superintendent, Dr. Sharon Contreras, to the principal of the Virtual Academy, who has done a magnificent job. And to you, the parents, this has not been an easy task. Giving a little backstory here, I remember where I was when we got the news about COVID. I was serving as the Youth Development Coordinator at Vandalia Elementary School at the time, and I was sitting in my office, and my good buddy, Doug Brown, who is an EC teacher, he runs in my office and he says, "Man, you're the only person with a TV in the whole school. Turn the news on." And I'm like, "Well, Doug, you know we're not supposed to be watching TV on the clock." I have to say that because I know our superintendent is watching. But we turned the news on and we saw these cases popping up all over the world. And he said, "Man, it's coming here. I guarantee you it's coming." I said, "Listen, man, this is America. This is the United States. We have some of the brightest minds in the world. We have some of the best doctors. We have some of the most advanced technology. COVID is not coming to America. You tripping, brother. Calm down." The next day, Doug Brown walks in my office again, and this time he has on a mask and gloves and looking like one of the Ghostbusters. And he said, "Man, listen, I'm telling you, the cases are here." And we saw it right on my board every day, the number of cases that were popping up. And about 2 weeks later, well, backtrack a little bit. By the beginning of that next week, he said, "Listen, man, today, if you don't listen to nothing else that I'm telling you, everybody thinks I'm crazy. If you don't listen to nothing else that I'm telling you, go to the grocery store. Stock up on toilet paper, stock up on paper towel, stock up on Lysol, get all of that stuff today. Listen to me, man, I'm telling you." Everybody was calling him Mr. CDC. They thought that he was crazy. They said, "You're tripping, you're being paranoid. This is America." Like, okay, pump your brakes. But you know me, I was raised by my grandmother, and my grandmother used to say, "Warning comes before destruction." So what did I do? I went to Harris Teeter, I got my toilet paper, I got paper towel, I got Lysol, I got everything, and I said, nothing else. I will have this for the rest of the year. It's something I won't have to buy if it never touches America. The next day, we went to the store and the shelves were empty. COVID had reached America. And we were in constant communication with the superintendent's cabinet, getting word from them to all of our principals and to the administrative staff and the teachers about what we were going to do. And by that following week, we were at home. We were in the house. And I just want to take this opportunity to give special kudos to our superintendent and her cabinet, because during the pandemic, we didn't lay off anybody. Nobody lost their job. She figured out how to turn buses into mobile hotspots. And while everybody else was kind of coasting to figure out what everybody else was doing, we had leadership in this district from the superintendent's cabinet, forward-thinking leaders who were figuring out how to put something like a virtual academy together. So I want to give kudos to them at this time. The student speakers did so well. To my buddy Dylan, where are you? Where are you? Raise your hand. You moved from Michigan. I'm from Michigan too. It gets better. I love it here. North Flint, Michigan, born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days. Cooling, relaxing, maxing all, cooling all, shooting some b-ball outside of the school winter. I'm in the right place. Greg, good to see you, man. I'm in the right place. The energy here is just amazing. Anytime you know that, you know you're in the right place, okay? But in the words of the great philosopher, the modern philosopher, the great poet of our time, somebody who I really compare to Shakespeare in his writings, they're so eloquent, a great speaker and writer and poet, in the words of Drake himself, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So I'm going to say what I have to say and be out of your way, okay? Again, follow me on TikTok. This is my shameless plug. We're building something with the Motivational Foundation called Motivational Mondays. And so while your kids are at home still, during the summer, we're going to be motivating them. I know, goodness, just another kudos to the parents. I remember when we went into quarantine, I guess we can call it that. When we went home, I remember thinking like, man, I'm not gonna call no students names that I had at Vandalia, but I just remember thinking, man, so-and-so's mama gotta deal with them all day. And I know your kids probably get on your nerves, but listen, we're not here at a funeral. We're not here at a court hearing. We're not here trying to figure out how to get somebody out of some trouble. We are here because we are celebrating the promotion of your brilliant and resilient young people. To go through what they went through over the last 2 years and to be sitting here behind us, smiling and having good things to say, this was tough. I want to tell you what one of the doctors, one of the scientists who said that we were in communication with my nonprofit as we were figuring out how we were going to do travel. They said, you know, we only face a pandemic, not even this, the magnitude that we're facing is one of the largest that we've ever faced. But we really only face a pandemic once every 100 years. So our children were the ones who lived through it, and for that I am truly grateful for them. We have something to celebrate. I want to speak really quickly about living on the edge of possibilities. Living on the edge of possibilities. This is the age of technology. And we will find that our students who have been a part of the Virtual Academy will be much better because they went through the Virtual Academy. You know, I look at job postings for IT jobs all the time, and I'm like, man, they're making like $200 and some thousand a year. How do I apply for that? And I'm like, I can't even really work PowerPoint that good, so this is probably not my avenue. But your kids, your young people are going to be the ones who step into those roles and really transform our society in such a mighty way. But that must not go without common sense. I was raised by my grandmother. My mother was a single parent. At the age of 4, my father left, and my mother said I was sitting on the steps, and I looked at her and I said, Mom, I hate you. And she said, you hate me? I'm paying the bills, I'm putting food on the table, you go flip the light switch, the lights come on, you go in there, open the refrigerator, it's a juice box in there for you, and you hate me? Why you hate me? I said, because you made my daddy take his socks and his shoes. And that was the beginning of me understanding that my father would no longer be in the home for very good reasons. My father had a mental illness. He was addicted, heavily addicted to drugs. At about the age of 5, We were having a garage sale, and our house was surrounded by people who my dad owed money to. And we had to go and live in my grandmother's basement for a long time. I kind of tucked away in hiding because he owed them that much money that my aunts and uncles and some others were able to kind of get the money to pay him off, and they sent him to Texas to be with his family away from us because he had put our lives in such danger. And you think coming out of certain circumstances you would be a certain way, but the choice to be successful is really up to you. And we have positioned our young people, put them in a position to be very successful. But with the virtual academy and all this technical learning, and all of us come from different homes, all of us have stories, and we come from different backgrounds. But I was raised by my grandmother. Like I said, my mother was working 3 jobs trying to support my siblings and I, and my grandmother, who was retired, kind of took the brunt of raising us. And one of the things that I thank her for, and I'm always careful to say everything good that I am is because of that woman. Everything good that I am is because of that nurse who spent her retirement raising some grandkids that she didn't have to do. But she instilled in us the values of common sense. One thing that I respect about the pandemic, and there are certain things that we hate about the pandemic, and then on the other hand, there are certain things that we have to respect about the pandemic. One of the things that I respect about the pandemic is our students were in places where they were around people who hopefully were teaching them common sense. Most of the common sense I learned was at home. I know certain teachers feel like, oh, my babies are safest when they're with me, I teach them everything, but there is nothing like some good common sense teaching from somebody like my grandmother. My grandmother moved her mother into the house, my big mama. My grandmother passed away before my big mama, and my big mama lived to be 105 years old. And my big mama, who had only a 3rd grade education because she was forced to drop out of school and work in the fields of Verbena, Alabama, she instilled in us very important lessons, math lessons. She was a mathematician, and I really didn't understand it until I got older. She wasn't a mathematician from a point of trigonometry or from a point of, as we said in GCS, Math 4. She was just a mathematician with word problems. She said things like this: it pays to do right, and it costs to do wrong. Common sense like that I tucked away and took those gold nuggets with me, and I carry them every day. She said things like, don't talk so much because an empty wagon makes a whole lot of noise. And so when you think about things like that, this technological generation of young people cannot go without common sense. And my grandmother used to always say, and I have just got to the point where I can talk about it without getting too emotional, but she used to always say, you're going to travel, you're going to speak to the world, you're going to make a difference in the world in such a mighty way. You're going to be a little politician. She used to say things to me like that growing up, like speaking life into me. That's very important that we speak life into these young people, right? And so a lot of that has come to fruition, but she used to always say, you got to be humble. You got to be humble. I want to tell our young people that as smart as they are, I'm sure they can probably work the computer better than 99% of us because they sat behind that screen for 2 years, right? But as smart as these young people are, we have to remind them that there is a lesson in humility. I want to tell a few stories and get out of the way. Young people, your parents remind me of the rich man who had the feast at his home. He had a feast and he invited everybody from the village to his home because he knew his days were numbered. In the backyard, he had a big swimming pool, and he had his servants fill the swimming pool up with poisonous snakes. So as the dinner is going on, if y'all heard this story, just stick with me. As the dinner is going on, he invites everybody to the backyard, and he stands up at a podium kind of like this, and he says, listen, I'm getting older, my days are numbered, and I'm ready to give some of my fortune away. I'm either going to give my house away, I'm going to give my cars away, I'm going to give money away, my daughter's hands in marriage, whatever y'all want. The first person who can swim across this swimming pool and make it out alive, you can have whatever you want from me. Well, before he can finish stating everything that he was going to give away, it was a young 8th grade boy in that swimming pool swimming. And he made it to the other side, and everybody is cheering for him. Everybody's cheering, and they walk him around to the podium, and they are holding this young boy up, and they say, wow, you did it, you did the impossible. Nobody was supposed to make it out of here alive. You did the impossible. What do you want? You want $1 million? What do you want? You want any car in the garage? And you're like, I'm not old enough to drive. They say, we'll get you a driver. You want the house? You want one of my daughter's hands in marriage? What do you want? And he's shaking his head. He said, I don't want any of that. So by this time, the older gentleman is scratching his head, and he's like, I don't know what else I can give you. What is it that you want? And he said, I just want to know the name of the person who pushed me in that swimming pool. And young people, I'm here to remind you that you can do the impossible with a little push. And so I want you young people to give your parents a round of applause for pushing you to do what is considered impossible. I got 2 points, and I'm sitting down. One of them is we are really not supposed to tell young people this, but I want to tell you guys, I challenge you all to try and fail. Try and fail and fail and fail and fail, and eventually one day you're going to get it right. There are a couple people who come to mind when we think about failure. One of them was Jim Carrey. We know Jim Carrey to be a phenomenal actor, but Jim Carrey, he didn't make it in the beginning. He got booed off stages when he was acting. Katy Perry, who was a phenomenal singer, she didn't make it. She was actually a gospel singer in the beginning. Then she released a gospel album. Y'all ever heard her gospel album? I know you haven't, because it didn't do that well. She failed, and she kept going. She signed with one record label, and she was so awful they cut her. She signed with another record label, and then she became Katy Perry. She didn't give up. She kept on trying. Oprah Winfrey is somebody else who failed. Y'all heard the story of Oprah. Oprah set out to be a news anchor. She said every time she showed up to a scene, the house was on fire and somebody died in the house fire, she would be on air crying. They said, Oprah, you can't do that. And so then she tried to go into another avenue of media. And then they started talking about her nose. They said she had a bell pepper nose and she needed to dye her skin and all of this other stuff. And so Oprah eventually became one of the greatest talk show hosts ever, and one of the richest women in the world, because she didn't give up. She kept trying and failing and trying and failing, and she got it right because she decided to live on the edge of possibilities. Somebody else, somebody who I really like, who failed a lot, was Jay-Z. Jay-Z was on his way to prison because he got involved in some gang violence. He grew up in the projects in New York, and eventually he had an altercation with somebody, and he ended up stabbing him, and they were getting ready to send him to prison. He got a good attorney. He was able to get off. He revamped his life, and he married Beyonce. Lord have mercy. But as we know, he became one of the richest music artists ever. He's a billionaire. The J.K. Rowling, the lady who wrote the Harry Potter series, she tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. But the last one I want to talk about is somebody who made virtual learning possible. Well, two of them. One is Bill Gates, and one of them is Steve Jobs. Bill Gates invested money into a business early on, and the business was awfully unsuccessful. But he kept trying, and he became one of the richest technology moguls ever. Steve Jobs had a different story. He was working hard. He had built a team of people who were working for him at Apple. And he came into the boardroom one day, and as they're having a board meeting, they said he would be there all night talking about stuff that nobody wanted to talk about because that's what type of nerdy type of guy he was, right? And they said in one board meeting, they had put out their lunch pills and everything, and they were like, man, he'd be getting ready to be in here all night. And he walked in, he said, put your lunch away, put your snacks away. I just want to let you know, in the morning, we all going to be millionaires. Meeting adjourned. And they're like, what? Here you go on some crazy stuff again. In the morning, guess what? They were millionaires. We fast forward, Steve Jobs ended up getting fired from his own company because he was too arrogant. What I tell you, my grandma used to say, be humble, be humble. He was too arrogant, so the board that he elected, they had a meeting, and they sided with his partner in the business, and they said, you know what, you're running the business into the ground, can't nobody tell you nothing, you're too arrogant, so we're going to decide to let you go as the chief executive officer of Apple. We got a little closet office over there for you. You can do like IT support until we kind of work you back up into this position, or you can go and find another job. He said, man, y'all gonna fire me from my own company. Y'all can have the company. I'm going somewhere else. Well, Apple was not as successful without Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs ended up going on to help find Pixar Studios. He did a whole bunch of other stuff. He found another technology company, and as Apple is suffering and Steve Jobs is still bringing in some money, even though he had really fell off at the time, they came back to him and they said, okay, listen, we're going to buy your company from you, and we're going to bring you back on as the CEO if we can do that. He became the Steve Jobs that we all know, and because he did not give up when he got fired from his own company, we all have iPhones in our hand and iPads right now. So I encourage you all to continue to try and fail and live on the edge of possibilities, because one day you will eventually get it right. Last, I want to end with this. Watch the people you surround yourself with. One of my mentors, Dr. Joyce Dixon, she always says, she says, the key to success is to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. As my grandmother would have said it, you know, with that old wisdom, and she would have said it, if you hang around the barber shop long enough, eventually you're going to get a haircut. And if you hang around the swimming pool, eventually you're going to get in. Watch who you surround yourself with. In closing, I will say this. Every morning in the jungle in Africa, before the sun rises and greets the sky, there's a gazelle that awakes, and she looks in the mirror and shines her horns, fixes her bangs, puts that stuff on her edges, you know, curls her eyelashes up, puts her lipstick on, and looks in the mirror and says to herself, if I want to survive today, I have to outrun the fastest lion, or else I'm going to become somebody's dinner. Every morning in that same jungle, before the sun rises to greet the sky, there's a lion that wakes up, and he wipes the crust out of his eyes, and he fixes his dreadlocks, and he looks in the mirror and says to himself, if I want to survive today, I have to outrun the fastest gazelle, or else I'm going to starve to death. The moral of that story is, every morning, whatever jungle we find ourselves in, whether it be High Point, whether it be Greensboro, whether it be Flint, Michigan, whether it be Philly, Detroit, all the jungles all over this country, whatever jungle we find ourselves in, we have to wake up running, or else somebody is going to outrun us. Dr. King said it best. He said, one must seek to do his life's work as if God Almighty called him at this particular moment in history to do it. And he must do it with a sense of cosmic responsibility, no matter how small the job may be. He must do a little job in a big way. He must do an ordinary job in an extraordinary way. If you can't be the pine tree that sits at the top of the hill, then be the little shrub in the valley, but be the best little shrub on that side of the hill. Be a bush if you can't be a tree. If you can't be a highway, just be a little bitty trail. If you can't be the bright shining moon, just be a little bitty star, for it isn't by the size that you wear and fail. Just be the best at whatever you are. So if it falls your lot to sweep streets, you sweep those streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, like Shakespeare wrote poetry, like Beethoven composed music. Whatever you find as your life's work, do it well, and do it so well that the host of all of heaven and all of earth will be able to say, here lived a man or woman who did his or her job as if God Almighty called them at this particular moment in history to do it. Thank you all so much.